good to see you guys again. I'm glad you made it back for another session. Now, today we're going to go over a presentation that is very important when you're troubleshooting. Sometimes not. When your customer calls in, they're not always going to be disconnected from the internet. Sometimes they're actually connected, but they're just going so slow that they're not able to pull up the websites that they're trying to get to. So guess what? Today's presentation is going to be over troubleshooting slow speeds. Today I'm going to teach you guys how to check for spyware, how to run netstat and traceroute, how to use QCR, which is one of your best friends when you're troubleshooting slow speeds, and also how to send Uber tickets. So what constitutes slow speeds? It's a great question, and I'm glad you asked. If the download speeds are below 70% of what the customer is actually provisioned for, 70% of that maximum speed, then that does determine the slow speeds issue. Now, Charter we only actually guarantee over 70%. Now, those speeds are going to fluctuate depending on a lot of different variables, but the customer doesn't need to know that. But if you actually see a speed that is below that 70% range, then that definitely is slow speeds and you will need to troubleshoot it. Now on the 5 meg package, that's going to be 3,500 or less. The 3 meg is 2,100 or less. And for 384, 268 or less. How do we check the customer speed? Well, I'm glad you asked. There's a lot of different sites that you can go to check a customer's speed. I personally recommend going to at least 2 or 3 different sites just to get the most accurate reading and the best idea of what's going on. Some of the sites that we do recommend are speedtest.charter.com. You can use abuse.charter.net/speedtest.htm or update.charter.com. Those are all the sites that we offer here at Charter. You can also use speakeasy.net or any third-party website that does offer speed tests. There's a lot of good ones out there. Now, kilobytes to kilobits. One of the most brain-rattling parts of troubleshooting slow speeds is doing the conversions. Elementary math, it's hard stuff. So if you understand the difference between kilobits versus kilobytes, that can really help out on a lot of your calls if you're trying to determine if the customer really does have slow speeds. Now basically, 1 kilobyte equals 8 kilobits. Say it with me, kilobyte, kilobit. And the way that you can tell if your customer says that they have slow speeds while they're downloading, have them read you the speed on the screen and pay attention to whether the K is capital and the B is capital, which is a kilobyte, or if it's an uppercase K and a lowercase b, that's kilobits. So where's latency occurring? Well, the first thing we want to rule out on all of our calls, regardless of what call it is, you want to rule out radio frequency, RF. Make sure it's not a signal issue. If they're having signal discrepancies, that can definitely cause their speeds to be slow. After you've done that, you want to find out if they've got a router. Find out if that computer is the only computer in the home or if it's connected to other computers using a router. Routers are notorious for slowing down speeds. If they do have a router, just go ahead and power cycle all of the components in that home networking system. Have them power cycle the modem first, then the router, and then see if that clears up the slow speeds issue. If it doesn't, you are going to have to bypass that router. Also, be sure to have the customer disable any firewalls or file sharing applications early on in that phone call. If they say that they've got slow speeds and they've got LimeWire open and they're trying to download the entire series of Sailor Moon, that might be part of their issue. You also want to check for low system resources if it's something internally on the computer, or any kind of third-party programs that might be slowing down their speed. Another thing you want to check for is spyware and adware. Any kind of malicious program that's running in the background that they're not aware of could definitely slow down the speed. So you definitely want to check for that, and I'll show you how to do that in just a minute. Clearing the cache. The temporary internet files are files that are placed on a customer's computer, and they can cause slow speed problems. Now, yes, they help the customer by loading those websites faster, but it can actually take more time for that computer to search for those files than it would to just load the website itself. Another thing, those files can become corrupt. They don't always work the way that they should. And they can actually cause current web pages to load slower. We have instructions on CCI, remember that's your best friend, CCI, on how to clear browser cache in both Internet Explorer and Netscape. Another thing, cache and browser problems only show up as slow speeds while the customer is actually surfing the internet. So say you're doing other pings, traces, any other throughput tests, that's not going to show up as any indications of slow speeds. Now let's say the signal levels are okay. Let's say that we've ruled out RF on this call already. The next thing we want to do is determine the speed package that the customer is supposed to be receiving. We do that by checking ACSR. Go into the billing system and make sure what package they're paying for. After you've done that, go ahead and compare that to what they're actually provisioned for in Aurora. Make sure that what they're provisioned for meets what they're paying for. Checking for spyware. You want to find out about any recent computer-related issues. Ask the customer, while they're surfing, have they noticed any strange pop-ups, any advertisements trying to sell them something? Have they had any browser or homepage hijacks? The way you check for that is say, have you ever tried to type in a web address and have it take you to a completely different page? Has your homepage ever randomly changed on you while you were surfing? Those are all indications that some sort of spyware is hijacking the browser. Also, you can find out what the homepage is actually trying to pull up by looking in that address bar in Internet Explorer while they're trying to surf. Another great way to check and see if spyware is causing slow speeds is by using a tool called NetStat. What is NetStat, you're probably wondering? NetStat gives a list of all the ports active on the PC. It's a great tool for troubleshooting slow speeds. If there are more than 10 lines that start with TCP, and actually I would even go as far as to say if there's more than 8 lines showing TCP listed, let the customer know that their PC is infected with some sort of spyware. If this is the case, we do have push documents on CCI that will walk the customer through some information on spyware. And also you need to tell them that this is where your support of this issue ends. It is not an issue on our network, it is something on the computer causing slow speeds, and they need to get that fixed. The way that you do a NetStat is on Windows XP, you can click in Start in the bottom left-hand corner, go to Run, and type the word Command, C-O-M-M-A-N-D, into the run bar. That will get you to a screen that looks like this. Once they're in their DOS prompt, have them type the command netstat space -sign and the letter A. When they hit enter, it's going to give them a list that looks similar to this. It shows all of the open, listening, or established ports on that computer, and each of them begins with either TCP or UDP. Now, if they've got more than 8 to 10 of those open, that's an indication of spyware. And as you can see, this customer's definitely got some problems going on there in the spyware department. If you ever have a caller who says that they've got too many to count, you know there's a problem. If your tests show slow speeds, say you've tested the customer's speed and it does tell you that their speeds are below that 70% range, you need to find out any critical network information. You need to know their IP address. You need to know their default gateway, their DHCP server, and their DNS server. You want to ping the customer's IP address to check for any degree of latency or any packet loss that might be going on. And we'll get into that in just a moment. Now, understanding packet loss. The example below shows what packet loss would look like if you're pinging a customer's IP address. Packet loss basically tells us that the information that's being sent is not reaching the destination. Somewhere along the way, we're losing pieces or packets of information. And as you can see from this example, where it says no response, that's packet loss. That means that that information did not get where it needed to go. Understanding latency. Now this example is going to show what latency would look like when pinging a customer's IP address using the NetLab tool. Latency is basically the amount of time that it takes a packet to travel from the customer's computer to its destination. High ping times over 220 milliseconds indicate that there's something going on there on the network. Either something's going slow or there's some sort of issue at hand. And as you can see from this example, these ping times definitely are over 220 milliseconds. We've actually got some as high as 360. So this customer's got a problem. Let's say the IP shows latency or packet loss. What do? You want to have the customer check for issues on their default gateway by having them ping it. If the gateway is showing latency or packet loss, that could indicate a network issue. If that's the case, go ahead and escalate it. Open up a lead chat, tell the lead all the information that you've gathered so far, and anything that would be relevant to help them solve this issue. Let's say the gateway looks fine. The next thing you would do is use NetLab to check that entire block of IP addresses to find out what's going on. Now let's say that the customer's IP address is 68.115.229.254. That block would range from 68.115.229.2 all the way up to 68.115.229.255. Using NetLab. Here we have NetLab. And this will let you see the active IP addresses in the block. It also lets you perform pings on each of those IPs just to make sure that there's nothing going on there in regards to packet loss or latency on that block of IP addresses. What do you do next? If commonalities exist, it could be something outside of our network. It could be nothing on Charter's end. This is where we use the traceroute tool. This identifies points of failure. This records a path that data takes through a specific gateway, and these gateways are referred to as hops, in order to get to a specified destination. It also calculates and displays the amount of time that each hop takes, and that's very important in determining where the source of slow speeds is occurring. An example of a good trace route. Here's an example. For instance, we've got no packet loss here, and also all of the times are way below 220 milliseconds. Everything looks good on that trace route. What does a bad trace route look like? Well, I'll show you. A bad trace route is going to have packet loss, or as you can see right there in the middle, you've got some times that are way above 220. You've actually got 291, close to 300 milliseconds. It's not good. There's something going on there. Now, if you've done all of the above and you still haven't found a problem, then you're going to want to troubleshoot for just standard CNT, connected not transferring, which is what we went over. You want to reinstall your TCP IP, and you also want to make sure that the network drivers are the recommended course, and the network drivers would be the recommended course of action at this point. Is it still slow? You've done all of this and you're still going slow? QCR is your best friend at this point, and I'm going to tell you what QCR is. It's a batch file that the customer can actually download and install on their computer. And we send our customers this batch file either through the push documents on CCI, or they can download it over the internet just by going to webpages.charter.net/QCR. Now, when the customer opens this little application and runs it, it's going to get pretty much everything that you need to troubleshoot. You're going to get your IP address information. You're going to get your pings and trace routes to multiple sites. You're going to have your NetStat pulled up right there in front of you so you can look at it. And it's going to put it all into this nice little notepad document on the customer's desktop. And guess what? They can email it to you. Entering the customer's IP address into the QCR companion, you can copy that information onto your clipboard, or they can just email it back to you, whichever is easier for you. And now I know this is a lot of information, and we went through it very, very quickly, so you guys probably have some questions. Go ahead and feel free to ask them. And I know that it's probably mind-boggling right now, and you're probably still confused about converting kilobits to kilobytes and bytes to bits, but I promise you, after you've taken a few of these calls, it's going to be easy. And maybe one day you'll be up here giving a presentation on it. Good luck.